Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Eric. Today I'm going to talk about Tremors. Tremors was released in January of 1990, making it one of the first major sci-fi releases of the decade of the 1990s. And I'll talk about why I think Tremors would, in some ways, set the tone for the decade. And I'll talk more about that. But Tremors was directed by Ron Underwood. It had a script that had been going around for a while. S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddock wrote the script. And finally, they were able to get the film off the ground. And it was filmed in the deserts of California, where an actual town was built. And yeah, so there's been a few films about the making of Tremors as well, which talk about the shooting of this film, which would become it was not a big hit when it first came out. Like a lot of genre films of this era, it became a big hit on VHS though when it hit the VHS market, and it gained a new life. And of course, a franchise has been there's been many sequels, TV series around Tremors, all stemming from this first film. So it's really a throwback B movie. It's inspired by Vilm, the sci-fi film from the 50s about giant ants, which I talked about some time back. It's got the desert setting and everything, so it's really just a creature feature, right? From of really in the that 1950s style, but it also has this meta quality to it too, where it's also in some ways it's it brings it has a lot more dimensions than the film. It's kind of building upon the films that inspired it, and through a lot of ways, it's combining genres. There's science fiction elements with the creatures. There's horror, a little bit of horror in this, and it's a western. It has the western iconography, and it kind of comes out with the characters. We have a lot of characters in the film who are individualistic, and but they do manage to come together to stop the graboids, as I believe they're called. And the creatures in the film, if you've not seen it, are these gigantic kind of worm creatures who live beneath the earth, and they're gobbling people up and wreaking havoc everywhere they go. So that's the idea for the creature. Um, I think a thing of note with this film, to go with my first point, it's a PG-13 film. I feel like if Tremors had been made like 10 years earlier in 1980, it would have been like a much harder horror movie, like probably rated R, a lot gorier, just a lot more a movie more for adults or teenagers, of that vein. But we see this more in the 90s, where genre movies become streamlined a little bit more, at least the major studio ones. This is Tremors is a great kind of gateway sci-fi horror movie, I think, for young people. If to get them started with the genre. So it kind of rides that fine line. There's still some kind of like Jaws does, where there's some scares, there's a little bit of gore, a little bit of humor, offbeat humor and everything. But it's really kind of it's not a movie for adults. I mean, it's all ages can pretty much, I think, enjoy Tremors. So that's and it really has this kind of pop feeling to it, where the humor in the film, like Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward are the two mainstays of the film, and just their repartee throughout. A lot of people call them, it's kind of going back to that buddy cop, to two good friends who have chemistry and have a good sense of humor. Earl and Val, the two characters, so they're a lot of fun. But there's a lot of humor, like with the Michael Gross and character and Regan McIntyre, who are survivalists, and they have they live in isolation because they're preparing for some sort of apocalypse type event. So a survivalist, and that was maybe kind of like a, well, a new character in a science fiction film. Maybe we hadn't seen characters quite like that before, but they're great as well, and they're very funny. And but just the way the film brings some are just everyday people in the town and how they have to come together to balance the threat. So yeah, yeah. I think there's just a lot of reasons why this movie works. I think the script is really good, as I talked about the humor. It's 90 minutes, so the film moves along well. There's, it's just a really well written script, that knows exactly what it wants to do. There's no extra scenes, we don't get too much exposition. I mean, we kind of, the film does just a great job of doing that. As I talked about, the cast is great, just a really good cast. The use of practical effects, which kind of puts this movie in the past a little bit because CGI would become one more prevalent through the 90s. But those practical effects work well. And I think it's just a movie, too, where watching people work together and find solutions, and it's not done in this heavy-handed way. Like I said, there's a lot of laughs, a lot of jokes, and that working for it that help the movie really come together. So yeah, I think starting out the 90s, it's just a film where it's a retro movie. It's referencing older science fiction movies, but it's been modernized where we have characters who are very contemporary type of characters in the film. There's themes of like talking about conspiracies and there's a little. It's a working class movie. There's a little bit of working class angst in the film as well, kind of like what you might get like in a John Carpenter movie, but it's all done in this kind of like this really almost like a pop song way, where it's really streamlined and really done in this accessible way. Okay, that I think we see throughout the 90s with a lot of science. Jurassic Park could do that. It's very retro. It like Jurassic Park is a retro movie, an old concept, but it modernizes it. And we'll see that again and again through the 1990s. So yeah, those are my. I hope this made sense. Those are just some my thoughts on Tremors. Yeah, just always a fun watch, a movie you can throw on anytime, and or just watch like 20 minutes or so. You'll get some laughs, and it's just a movie that just really goes down easy. Would be the way I would describe Tremors. So yeah, those are my review. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. Bye.